Oh boy, the MoistCr1TiKal situation is crazy. How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction. Today I'll be checking out something from Charlie himself on the development of some weird stuff regarding the man, because the internet was ablaze recently because of a claim that he was supposedly leaving the internet. This was like following a debate that he had with, of all people, Sneeko, and it was regarding the age of consent, as far as I remember. No. Very strange. First, why the hell did he even think that it was a great idea to have yet another conversation with Sneeko?
You want me to watch your clips? Watch my clips. These are the only clips I'm watching, you were?
But he's a fucking imbecile, you absolute buffoon. What you have there is not clips. These are mags. The same way that this is also a mag.
Flawless, sublime.
But people were speculating that because of some statement that he made in there that he was going to get cancelled off of the internet and decided to leave. Being the content creator that always covers from goofy stuff to drama, is crazy to see him cover a drama about himself. So that's basically what we're going to be checking out right now, him covering what the hell actually happened.
Heavens to Betsy, what a week, huh, sports fans? Holy Toledo. Yeah, so MoistCr1TiKal's in a big oopsie-poopsie situation here. It reminds me of the time in Moonfall when K.C. Houseman sacrifices himself and dies of cringe to become the moon. Yeah, so, being serious now, since this has become such a big issue, I've been in a lot of drama recently. I'm in hot water, and I'm biting on the fart bubbles that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement.
Oh.
I didn't know I was retiring. That's news to me. I'm as shocked as all of you are. I had a ton of fun last night playing a game called Clickleding, which is basically like a cuckoldry simulator, but for clicking against like the Lorax in a hotel room. And I just did like an old school gameplay commentary video. I was bubbly, full of jubilation. I posted it today only to learn that I'm just a big old fucking liar. Liar, plants for hire, I suppose. Apparently, and I didn't know this until I posted the video, everyone was under the impression that I was quitting the internet. So I started scratching at the hair on my chinny chin, wondering, when the fuck did that happen? Was I sleepwalking? Do I have somnambulism? Is this some kind of like, you know, Fight Club situation? But instead of like Tyler Durden, I have fucking Charles Turden here that's just making wrong announcements.
It's like me when my friends used to make fun of me because of my narcoleptic attacks. People were just spreading news, which was made extremely fun after I started making content on YouTube, that I actually died. Because when I would take like an elongated break, people would be like, is he dead or something? No, I'm still here. For those of you who do not know, I have narcolepsy, so occasionally I have those sleeping attacks. And because I already sleep like a freaking zombie, it's damn near impossible to wake me when it actually occurs. So, yeah. Mean jokes would be perpetuated about me.
It turns out the patient zero behind all of this was a post Jackson made announcing that I would be leaving the podcasts, which is something I thought about periodically for quite a few months now, mainly because I started to recognize that I was becoming the very thing I'd make fun of with being chronically online. Like, I just was always online, and the podcasts were a big proponent of that, and I just kind of wanted to scale back the amount of time I spend online, so then I kept Jackson in the loop the whole time here about where my head was at, and last week I told him, hey man, I think this is going to be where I hang up the jersey, you can put it in the rafters, throw it in the dumpster, but I think I'm just going to be, you know, sailing off into the sunset here and just reducing the amount of stuff I do online, which he completely understood, so he made the announcement just letting people know that, and then that got spun on Twitter and Reddit as MoistCr1TiKal's taking an indefinite hiatus and quitting the internet fundamentally.
Say, one thing that you should do, Charlie, the best advice, get off Twitter, or at least try to minimize your use of it as much as possible. Because that app is the worst thing imaginable. Like, I remember people kind of making ridicule of the statement that I and a bunch of other people were making when we heard that Elon was firing, like, what was it, 40% of the staff of Twitter or something like that? And even, of course, the acquisition. Because, yes, Twitter was already toxic. There's no debating that. But it was made significantly worse. And people were like, no, he fired them because they weren't doing their job. Well, how's the moderation going right now? The brazen amount of falsehood that are being spread on that app is insane. And just like blatant lies are being spread on there. And when people are being called out, do they recant the statement? No, they double down. Like, if idiocracy was represented in one app, that would be Twitter.
Mentally. Don't know when I'll be back. He's done with the internet because of all this controversy. Patooey on his grave. He's gone. When looking at the post, I don't even know where that's coming from. It's literally just talking about the podcast and me just stepping away. Like, it's not. It doesn't extend beyond that.
At least he didn't say Haktua. Please. I just did it, but do not perpetuate that meme. I've had enough of hearing about it.
I can't even wrap my tiny noodle around how anyone could perceive this as me being done with the internet entirely, but that's the story that they ran with, and that's what most people saw, not the actual post. So everyone thought I was quitting the internet, so I posted that video that I was really happy with because it just felt like an OG old school video that made me happy, and then bang! Just a flood of comments and dislikes all saying shit like, how could you fucking deceive us? I thought you quit, huh? What happened to leaving, huh? I just read this post on Twitter from an account that had a profile pic of titties photoshopped onto Thomas Edison that said you were done, and it had 50,000 likes, so I know it was true, and you're just a fucking liar. I can't even just peacefully walk away from some projects without it being a massive fucking reaction over actual nothing burger information. And trust me, no one has a palate more refined for nothing burgers than me.
You.
I have ranted about the stupidest shit of all time.
I fully understand, because like in a competition of quote-unquote slop, he's right there next to pyrocynical, right? The two are the leading forces of slop coverage. Like, it's fully understandable that he sees himself as becoming the evil that he once feared. So stepping away is the right choice. I understand it. But people making outright lies about you? Nah, that's not fair.
This was mind-boggling even for me. So to set the record straight, no, I'm not retiring, despite what the experts are telling you. All I did was walk away from a couple of projects. Like, that's really it. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to do, especially when one of them I've been doing for like 8 years. I really didn't think it was that deep, especially not deep enough for how big of a story it's become with all of the wild narratives running around about the true reason that I stopped doing it. So let's get into that drama. I've talked about it on stream, I don't even know how many times at this point, but we'll just talk about all of it in this video here. So, when covering the Ava Tyson situation, I was attacked by a lot of people for not being quick enough. Even though I covered it within like the first 6 hours, people were unsatisfied that I hadn't made a video within like the first fucking 20 minutes of it dropping. And then when I did finally finish the full video covering all of it, it was another massive problem where now I only did it out of an obligation because people called me out, and then I also got accused of being a transphobe because I didn't use Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which were she, her. I didn't know that. I thought just calling Ava Tyson by her name was okay, and I had also heard when I went to the Mr. Beast thing, someone referred to Ava Tyson with they. So I was truly under the impression that that was okay. And for that, I was annihilated by a good chunk of Twitter.
Yeah, you cannot ever satisfy the horde. And you should also never feed the troll. That's the same thing with why in the world did you decide to have that debate with Sneeko? That's literally the thing that he wants. Just coverage. I mean, it makes no sense. But again, what did you expect, man? It's fucking Twitter. And the thing that really annoys me is how the internet have this weird double standard. Like, people will be like, it's incredible that I need to go to a content creator to actually get the coverage of the news that is supposed to substantiate the claims that are being made, because mainstream media has pretty much turned into content creators who only want clicks. And I'm like, can't you see how that argument is sort of circular? Because you're actually asking content creators to do the same thing that you're blaming journalists for doing, to just put out news as quickly as possible without double and triple checking the sources. Like, how many people fell for the bullshit that was going on with the Olympics recently? One, the whole Last Supper picture, apparently, that some, were they drag queens, were displaying at the Olympic Games. Like, how do you connect the Last Supper with the Olympic Games? Like, it takes like 2 seconds of thinking to be like, okay, something doesn't make sense here. And the same thing with the female boxer recently, that the likes of Logan fucking Paul was pushing and calling her a man. This one is extremely funny because I'm born African, okay? I come from a continent that is extremely transphobic and homophobic. There are plenty of things coming from that, but one of the reasons I often blame it for is the extreme religiosity that we have had. Because in the past, we had literally kingdoms that were matriarchal and a shit ton of different ways of viewing sexuality. But yeah, let's not get into that debate. But literally, a country like Algeria, where being gay can get you in jail, and being trans, goddamn, are you even allowed to be that? How the fuck would such a country send a trans person to the Olympic Games?
Doesn't make any sense.
I understand that many people, especially in the US, don't even have a passport, so they don't really care about what the hell happens outside of their country. This is not to put it solely on Americans, because Italians were also pretty much worried about it, because it was, after all, one of their fighters that was crying for not passing the skill check. But the way that people are just trying to co-opt every single thing, grasping for straws to just push their own agendas and their movements. If they're transphobes, they're just gonna talk about that. Like Turf Jesus J.K. Rowling that was just seething at the thought that a natural born woman was strong. It's absolutely insane, or should I rather say it's absolutely Twitter.
And then annihilated by another good chunk of Twitter, because I called out Sneeko, who was the main proponent, about me covering for Mr. Beast to keep the collab alive. Wow. I wasn't talking about Ava Tyson because I wanted the Mr. Beast collab. And I talked about how absurd that statement was, especially given his history with fighting against the age of consent. He's been very vocal about how much he hates the age of consent, and so I talked about that briefly at the end of the video, which then changed the whole narrative for a lot of people, where I never talked about Ava Tyson and only talked about Sneeko. So it was a complete lose-lose, because if I didn't talk about what Sneeko was saying, I would have been called a coward for not addressing it and talking about, like, well, he was going to cover for Mr. Beast until Sneeko called him out. So, like, if I didn't do it, I would have been attacked. I did do it, still got attacked. It really was unwinnable. But from that spawned a conversation where I talked to Sneeko directly, because he was very upset that I was talking about how him rallying against the age of consent is pedophile arguments, like defending pedophilia. As I've said since the very beginning of this channel, I'm always willing to engage with people I disagree with, and I thought that maybe there was a chance I misunderstood what he was trying to say, even though it's still abhorrent. I thought, okay, maybe he's not actually trying to defend pedophilia. He's like some kind of pseudo-intellectual debate bro who's trying to say something else. So I was willing to hear him out on it, and I talked to him in DMs.
You literally said the word debate bro. Like, we're not talking about a type who is actually searching for an honest conversation. Sneeko has never searched for that. As we've covered in Shoe on Head videos and his previous takedown of Sneeko himself, Charlie, he just ping-pongs from one, like, argument to another, from an old ideology to a new one. Right now he's trying to co-opt Islam and being a devout Muslim. Like, what the fuck?
And he said he doesn't believe in the age of consent, he believes in the age of marriage, can't assign a number to it, but said that when someone can legally drive, they should be able to marry at the same time. Which is literally like a 15 or 16-year-old, because you get your permit at 15, your license at 16, and both are way too young to be marrying. That shit is completely unacceptable. It is downright disgusting. He then said that he was happy to discuss it in a call, which I said I was willing to hear him out on, and he said that he would do it later because he was outside doing an IRL stream in Turkey. So I was willing to hear him out, because again, if this is some kind of crazy misunderstanding, I'd like to know that, because it'd be really fucking scary for someone in his position with his level of influence to be actually advocating for adults marrying and fucking children. That's a huge problem. That's a big fucking problem. So if there was something that he was like trying to say but failing to do so, I was willing to at least hear it. And this is where the infamous debate came from. The debate that people are calling the debate of the century. I'm kidding, not a single soul on the planet said that. It's actually one of the most dogshit debates I think human beings have ever had. He eventually called me on Discord. I was under the impression this was just him and I talking. I had no idea this was going to be a debate. I thought he was going to try and explain himself like, hey, no, this isn't actually what I meant. This is what I'm trying to say. I thought this was a conversation between him and I, not this kind of debate show that he was putting on for his audience. There is nothing in our DMs that indicated that's where it was going. When I joined the call, he asked if I was going to record it, to which I said, I can if he wants me to, but I was also down to just talk. So I thought maybe he wanted it as a recording to like explain to people like, no, he's not actually a pedophile defender or advocating for that kind of thing. So I thought that is why he asked. I didn't know it was because it was being streamed. Especially because one of his last DMs was about how he's doing an outside IRL stream and he would call me after. To me that says when he's done streaming, that's when we'll talk, not as a part of his stream. I didn't know this was a debate nor a stream until about an hour and 40 into it, roughly somewhere in that ballpark. I am not a debater. I've never claimed to be one. I never want to be a debater. I've always said that I believe conversations are the most productive because debates always devolve into what side can score the most points by explaining their thought process, even if the position is wrong. Whereas a conversation is a very different thing to me. So I didn't even know that's what this was. So obviously I was unprepared for a fucking debate. So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear that I found his statements on the age of consent and children marrying adults being fucking hideous.
I'm sorry, but how is it that Charlie came out as being the bad guy in this? When we have literal Sneeko, again, dude who defended the movie Cuties, and who is against the age of consent, how is Charlie somewhat the culprit here? I'm sorry, did some weird canon event happen that changed the world that I am not aware of?
Absolutely revolting. And then he started arguing about, well, what is a child? We must define a child, you know. It's not actually being under 18. It's all a bunch of hooey. And I really think if you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child? You're already way too far gone. Like, that is so fucking weird. And in no uncertain...
That's like a fucking Jordan Peterson move. Like, what do you mean by you? What do you mean by believe?
And what do you mean by God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, we don't really know what any of those things mean.
What the hell? No, stop that.
Terms multiple times throughout the debate, Sneeko says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18 or older.
We're talking globally. Let's just talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone. Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Even get back a little bit. Do you think there's not a problem with a child being with an adult?
Okay. We haven't even agreed upon what a child and an adult is. You keep saying that it's 18.
Under 18 is child.
And I'm telling you, that's not even the definition of the word.
What is the number? There needs to be a number, or else you can do the same thing.
I just told you there's not a number.
But do you see why that's a problem?
No.
If there's no defined... So why can't a 12-year-old marry an 18-year-old?
Because most 12-year-olds haven't gone through puberty yet. And most 12-year-olds...
What if, as you just said, it changes. What if a 12-year-old went through puberty early, the parents consent, the 18-year-old and the parents consent? Can they do it?
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
we're not talking most likely. Just say it.
If the families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready. Why should I stop it?
No fucking way. put this man somewhere. Chris Hansen, whomever, where are those popular YouTubers who are trying to grasp at straws to try to put people in jail? Like, I'm saying that because recently, for those who are unaware, the internet is of course aflame because of the insane amount of PDF files that are being found recently. As we know, Not Like Us is the national anthem of 2024. So we had creeps like Dr. Disrespect, who way in his 30s was texting a minor. And we have people like Chris Tyson, who was literally sharing CP to his underage audience. And now we had recently the thing with Kai Cenat. Now, this situation is a tad weirder. While I do believe that the situation here had to do with whom was presumably his cameraman, who was 20 at the time and texted with a girl who he presumed was 19 but revealed to be 17, yet continued texting, Kai was literally crying on camera because he knew the current witch hunt that is going on with the age of consent. Despite there, in all honesty, having a gap of 3-year-old is not that wild, he knew what was coming for him. I'm not making excuses for him, I'm just thinking that the nuance is kind of being lost in this conversation. That being said, where are those people at when we're talking about literally Sneeko over here, who is making some abhorrent claims? Which, mind you, as I said before, Guy is co-opting the Islamic faith to somehow justify this. And as some of you know, I'm an atheist now. Used to be a fervent Christian, and there have been people who will also use Christianity to defend straight up PDF file adjacent actions. It's absolutely wrong, okay? It is. Yet I'm going to say that there are good Christians as well as good Muslims who do not make arguments like this. And the fact that there are people who are straight up jumping onto this, believing that this is representative of most Muslim faith, is fucking insane. Because the thing that you do not realize is that when you're supporting an argument like this, people are not looking at you as being a person of faith. Fuck no, they're looking at you as an absolute savage, and they are going to be demonizing you for this. Most normal people at least should. Some Christians are going to do that, right? Christian conservatives will always use that as an argument, like, look at those savages who do not know shit about how to take care of children, while at the same time they're using the same arguments to justify how underage should be keeping children of the rapists, right? And what makes this situation even worse is that Sneeko is right now streaming this to his underage audience of young teenagers whom, if you've seen plenty of the videos of these youngsters who, for example, the one where they're meeting him IRL, who are spewing transphobic nonsense and how they hate women and stuff like that.
What did you take? Fuck the woman, fuck the woman. What? No, wait. We love women. We love women. We love women. But not like transgenders. Yes, sir. We love everybody. No. All gays should die.
Which I don't think they mean. These are young people who are highly impressionable. They're just repeating what is being said to them. And they hear stuff like this and they are going to be repeating the same talking points. And I still cannot fathom how Charlie is the worst out of this.
At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically mature, the parents consent, both parties are happy.
A 12-year-old being physically mature.
If that's the only line that actually makes sense.
Again, I don't think a 14-year-old can ever be physically mature.
Mm-hmm. Even though they literally can. Even though puberty actually defines that, it's fine.
I don't believe so. I was 14 once. I actually had a mustache when I was 14. Would you have looked at me and said I was physically mature enough to get married?
If you were physically mature, if you were mature, yes, I would. Okay.
Really? When I was 14.
Yeah. If you were 14 and you were ready to go and you met another 14-year-old, yes, I would.
No.
The fuck does he think this is? Like 14-year-old in anime standards? Like the anime teenager that is looking like a Baki character? And like the way that they're being drawn in like a hentai or something for women? What the fuck is wrong with this guy?
We're talking adults. You keep going back to that.
That is adult.
I meant...
I told you my definition.
I
told you the definition.
Adult.
The definition, okay. If you went through puberty, you're an adult. That's the definition of adult. So yes, if you're an adult and you have a mustache, you're ready to get married, fine. Okay?
Unironically saying a 14-year-old adult, I think, would make most sensible people want to puke. There's so many instances of this, and a lot of the conversation was spent with him talking about, like, overseas age of consent, like talking about how Japan's age of consent was 13 for the longest time, this and that.
Of course he went there. Yeah, the age of consent in Japan was 13-year-old. Bruv. And this is one of the talking points that so many pedophiles in Japan have been using to commit heinous acts on minors. You know it.
But the whole thing was like pulling teeth, and it was fucking painful. And I think it's extremely alarming perspective to have. Unironically calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is extremely concerning to be advocating for something like that. Like, would Sneeko be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No.
He might, as it turns out. And then he's going to sit in the background and justify that, but the prophet did it, so it's normal.
No one should be okay with something like that. Like, that's fucking terrible. That is actually terrible. But now, since I wasn't, like, holding him to this topic or making sure it stayed on the topic I thought we were talking about, it went all over the place with a ton of different things. But the big one, and this is what most people have focused on, which was my response to his question about kids transitioning. And the way he would pose that question would be by asking if I thought it was okay if kids who want to switch their gender go to the doctor and get their dick cut off. Is it okay if a 9-year-old goes to a doctor and gets their cock cut off right then and there? And when posed with that question, I replied with yes. And I've talked about this on stream many, many times now, and I'll talk about it again
in
here.
hyperbole or what?
I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea that any living, breathing human being actually thought that that's how transitioning works. Where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole fucking meat off.
See, this is the reason why we need to mandate. Every government on earth should do a thing where, like, we have a specific day, or mind it, like a weekend, where all social media shut down. That needs to happen. Because the brain rot that people are getting on with memes is fucking insane. This is outright laziness. It's literally that. It's outright laziness. Like the thing that I talked about with the Kaisner situation, right? Like the nuances of terminology. Or at least like trying to dig deep or trying to find what the definition of something is. It's non-existent for most people. They hear a talking point, they see if like it matches with A and B or perhaps C point, and they just form themselves a conclusion. How about you actually just literally type for like 5 minutes and try to figure out if something is actually true or not? Like, I did the Haktua meme there. Do you know the amount of nonsense that was spread about the Haktua girl? That her father was like a preacher or something like that. That she had been disowned from her family.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that huck to and spit on that thing. You get me?
He does only one video. It is one video. I'll subscribe as a family. Yeah, you will watch that like a pay-per-view.
Ask me for the link in bio for my OnlyFans. I don't have an OnlyFans, and there will never be an OnlyFans.
Currently, Welch has been fired from her preschool teaching position following her sudden internet fame. The preschool that employed Hawk criticized her behavior during the interview, deeming it inappropriate.
That's false. I worked in a spring plant for about 10 months. Did I really get fired from my job? That is false. I quit my job.
Also, I've heard rumors that your dad is a preacher.
My father is so far from a preacher, it's crazy.
So everything has just been made up?
Oh yeah, like none of it's true.
And just the blatant harassment that followed her, despite her being considered a national treasure for having said, "Fuck to it." This is the power of memes. That is delightful, until it gets fucked up. And this is literally a part of it because this is not happening. Okay, you know what? Let's do a little bit of an exercise here. We're gonna search for gender affirming care. So in the case of gender affirming surgery, it's a surgical procedure or series of procedures that alter a person's physical appearance and sexual characteristic to resemble those associated with their identified gender. Now, we can talk about the rare scenario if we search for that word here. Genital surgery, the thing that was mentioned there before. This actually, other surgery such as chest reduction is, I remember, the largest one. And I know this because, let's scale it back a little bit. 3 years ago, I met with one of my oldest friends who was like part of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game club. We had a lot of fun when we were younger, literal childhood friends, and he came out to me as being gay. It was a nice thing to know. I had hints about it, and it was just nice that he confided in me and told me about it. It was great. This year though, when we met again, he told me that the literal guy who was like the most consumed by Yu-Gi-Oh! During that time, like, you know the meme of like the black guys who are playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And dude that literally makes the noises?
38? Yeah. You played 2?
Copy them.
That was that guy that I'm about to talk about here. He was so animated when he came to that game. He told me that he had transitioned from male to female. I knew the guy as being like a very recluse person who only lit up when he was amongst us, his friends, and now she's a very happy individual. And who the hell am I to hate on that? But because of stuff like that, I actually start to get interested in truly knowing what the fuck is happening. And so back to the thing that is rare here, which is the genital surgery. However, these procedures are extremely rare. In 2017, one of the leading UK trans surgeon, James Ballinger, committed that he had never received a request for it. Now, what is the next one? Yes, gender dysphoric children. Now, it is said here that sex reassignment surgery is generally not performed on children under 18. And here is the next one with rare in our search term here that describes the gender dysphoric children, right? That states sex reassignment surgery is generally not performed on children under 18. Now, people who have the same train of thought as Nico are going to focus on the word generally, though in rare cases may be performed on adolescents if healthcare providers agree there is an unusual benefit to doing so or risk to not perform it. Now, if we follow the literature that was linked to it, we end up in this thing here from the American Academy of Pediatrics that has a full-blown, I don't know how many pages document this is on how this ends up being done. And it states very clearly here that this policy was reaffirmed in August of 2023, where I guess like an entire board and many medical experts were sitting down to figure out if these were the right ways of approaching this. So we could be going through all of the definitions table here, but what we are truly interested in is gender affirming surgery. So we search for gender. Oh, where's my search bar? Gender affirming surgery. Here we go. What does it say here? Let me zoom so that you all can see it very clearly. Gender affirming surgery refers to stuff like top surgery, which is that of the chest. Bottom surgery is that of the genitalia. This is typically performed on adolescents in rare cases. And when we click on the note there, it says that eligibility criteria for gender-affirming surgical intervention amongst adolescents are not clearly defined between established protocols and practice. When applicable, eligibility is usually determined on a case-by-case basis with the adolescent and the family, along with input from medical, mental health, and surgical providers. So it's not just that a kid can just step forth and say that I want to have my genitals cut off. to have the family that has to agree on it. We have surgical experts that have to agree on it, medical, mental, that are there. We are talking about a whole board of people that have to make sure that this is right. And so if we click further onto the content here of how this is decided, let's see. We're gonna search for this thing here on the endocrine treatment of gender dysphoric, gender incongruent persons and society clinical practice guideline. To which here they describe that the minimal that they experienced in this was through the treatment prior to a 13.5 to 14 years of age. Following the linked data here, which is from just recently in June of 2024. Can we have something on minus? Let me see. On method, I want to see result. Right. Related diagnosis was that 5.3 per 100,000 total adult was receiving gender affirming care compared to 2.1 per 100,000 minors. So, can we ask Google how many adolescents use social media are in the US? God damn. It is 42 million adolescents. So, we said it was 2.1 that received the gender affirming care. So, per 100,000, we divide this by the 42 millions per 100,000, that's 420, and divided by 2.1, that is 200 people. So out of 42 million, 200 people are receiving this surgery. And what did it state here? The study finds that cisgender males account for the vast majority of breast reductions, with 80% of surgical amount in adults performed on cisgendered men and 97% of surgery amongst minors performed on cisgender male teens, i.e. the vast majority of these surgeries that are being done are first and foremost breast reductions, which is literally for, I don't know, fat ass kids who, because of neglect, malnutrition, or whatever may be causes, are too fat and have to literally undergo a gender affirming surgery to remove their man boobs. It took me, what, less than 10 minutes to search all of this up to come to a conclusion that this is literally not happening. And most people can do that if they actually are willing to read up on shit. But they don't. They rather just listen to something that is easy and lazy and get on with their lives being bigoted. Like, don't get me wrong, there are transgender people who can do some heinous things. We literally talked about Ava Chris Tyson recently. They are people after all, and people are capable of evil. But I do understand why people get fucking mad when things are constantly misrepresented as being fact when they barely do any type of research.
I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I didn't know he was speaking literally. I thought he was just referring to the entire process of transitioning and just using this over-the-top statement to encapsulate all of it. Because you literally cannot get that surgery unless you are 18. Like, you actually have to go out of your way to be that stupid on the topic than you would just spending a couple of seconds looking it up. There are very rare cases where someone under 18 has had that surgery performed. That's not common. So I really didn't think that someone could be so dumb on the topic. I thought he was just speaking in hyperbole, which is my mistake. I should have been more clear instead of making an assumption that he was talking about something nuanced in an over-the-top way. I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that. And I'm also not afraid to admit that I am not the most educated when it comes to transitioning. I am not someone that has a ton of knowledge about the subject to be
like most people, like most normal folks. Even literally the thing that he was being accused of before, of I don't know if it was straight up dead naming, but not calling Chris Titan by her right pronouns. Like, most normal people make those mistakes all the time, and I'm willing to bet that all of those, I'm gonna use the word woke here, but at least social justice warriors who are always pushing all of those narratives forth also do make those mistakes.
Be speaking on it in a really in-depth manner, but even I know these very surface level things that everyone has easy access to understand. It is a long process, and I have no problems at all if a kid gets interested in that process and starts going through that process with proper care. And then when they reach the age where they can consider that surgery and decide they want to do it, then that's all power to them. That's entirely up to them. They have reached that age. They can now do that surgery if they want to. That is not a surgery that's being offered to like a 9-year-old who just says, I feel like changing genders today. It's just not how it works. And I didn't think that that's what was actually being discussed because it's so fucking silly. Now, I'm sure there's some really fringe cases you can point to where that kind of thing did happen, but it's not common. Thus, I didn't think that's what was being referred to in the conversation. And it is, again, my mistake for not recognizing that at that moment, it was being spoken about literally. So all that shit that people keep dogpiling and spouting about me about how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just fucked up. Like, it's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments. Like the one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point to try and make. I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneeko was spouting about the age of consent. And I don't know why I thought this was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports in this subject and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, go through the process of learning about it. And when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, oh God. It wasn't a point where I was trying to say, well, changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball and soccer. Like, it's not what I was trying to get at, but because I didn't elaborate on it and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's one people have harped on a lot. Oof. And I get it. Like I said, I am not a debater. Like, I didn't go in here expecting a debate. So I had nothing prepared here for this inundation of outrageous questions and tangents. Like, there was a point where Sneeko was trying to get me to say white power. Like, the whole thing was a fucking mess. It was, without a doubt, probably the worst debate that video has ever been cursed with. Wow. And I really regret not doing a better job here. It's not something I should have even done in the first place. I just have a tendency to really hope for the best out of people, and I was really hoping that I and most people were wrong about Sneeko's perspective on the age of consent.
Way too much.
However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. He was very adamant about this position, and I did a terrible job in arguing with him, and I did a terrible job of articulating my beliefs. I am supportive of the LGBTQ+, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about. I just wish I did a better job of expressing that. To be open and honest here, and I've talked about this a lot, I've always treated my channel kind of like a diary for myself, which is why I just talk about so much different nonsense and so many things that I know a lot of people don't give a fuck about, but some of it's fun for me to talk about, or some of it's just things I care about. So being totally honest, I used to treat the internet as an escape from my dog shit real life. Truly unhappy, really hated most of every...
Yeah, but now it's no longer the case, right? Now you actually have to escape to real life to flee from the internet. Ain't that a bitch? It's literally true. That's why I said we need to have like a mandate of like shutting down social media for like a weekend for people. At least every single month. Let's try to do that at least once a year and see how it turns out. It should very much feel like people who are like halting the goon sesh and clearing up the mind, unlocking an extra third of the brain capacity starting to float and stuff like that. This could be happening.
Everything about myself, and the internet was my escape from it. But now it's really become that real life is the escapism for me now. Like, I love posting and creating things, but I don't like interacting with the internet around me anymore. And it's something that I started to realize a couple months ago, and I've talked about it on stream a little bit, how because I've covered so many like drama stories and everything, it's pretty much all that I ever get told about when I'm streaming, and it's become such a massive headache, and it's just constant negativity that I'm fully flooded with, like at all hours. Like, I am in like this human centipede of eating someone's ass while having my ass eaten with even more things that I'm being demanded to like talk about, where everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for like the last 6 or 8 months, I feel, where if I talk about something, it's a problem. Even if something is cut and dry as like Cody Ko having sex with a 17-year-old being bad, I caught a lot of shit for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man, the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. Shit. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So it just really feels like a rock and a hard place where, regardless, it's just going to be a massive flood of negativity. And a huge critique of me that I've always seen is Charlie's a fence sitter. He's just a fucking fence-sitting enlightened centrist cuck, this and that. And I've always said for the entire time I've been on the internet, I'm not special. I'm literally just a normal guy.
That's, to be totally honest, that's what most normal people do. That's what most normal people do. Most normal people don't have the amount of time to like sit down and research a topic. Like what I did right now with the whole gender affirming care thing. Most people will not have the time to do this because, one, it might not affect them that much personally. They might not even know a transgender person in their lives, so they would not care. And third, it's way too convenient to be lazy. I kind of understand, but it's always to the point where, like, if you actually truly do care to share your meaning on a subject and start claiming it as being fact, then you actually need to do research. You can share your opinion. We have free speech. That's the beauty of things. But like, seriously, if you start stating things as being factually sound, do the research first. Come with, like, you know, papers that can back up your claims. And I understand that people will be mad at Charlie for being a fence-sitter, but that's what normal people do. And it depends, you can say that because he's a content creator, he should be held at a given standard. But like, you are coming to his channel, a channel that quite literally always covers slop. And you are expecting, you know, a good breakdown of things. It's not like me who have like a background whenever I'm talking about something that is sciencey. I can literally deliver something concise because that's something that I studied. So yeah, it's not that.
Who got very lucky. I just sit here, joke about shit, talk about my opinion on things, and nothing else. I don't have a unique perspective on things. I don't have deep insight into the vicissitudes of certain things. I am literally just a guy who yaps, has some fun, talks about shit, does some wacky stuff as well, and that's it. It's just not that deep. But because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last, I'd say like the last 2 years, it's really popped off as me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like it's all this like nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary, where that's apparently like a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about, and I talk about it. I am legitimately just an average, well, below average height guy who's about to turn 30. I'm not just spitting hot takes out the wazoo here.
Oh shit, we are the same age. He's 29 too, oh my god. I should have yapped way before. When I start yapping, I could have had a degree in yapology right now. He's literally me. Fuck. Good on him. Good on him.
I'm just being myself. That's all this channel ever has been. And now it's become super controversial to do that if it's not like, you know, picking sides on everything, it seems. And it's very frustrating. For the longest time, it was just me having fun. And for the most part, it still is. But I've started to recognize over the last few months that some of the things I do just really aren't fun for me to do, and I've been doing them out of obligation. Mainly internet drama. When I initially started covering drama so many years ago now, it was fun, because it wasn't as serious. Like, the stories were a lot, you know, more quirky. It was easy to get invested because it was kind of just like a soap opera, like a really dumb soap opera. But recently it's been much more serious, and I feel the need to talk about these things because a lot of them are extremely serious with very important topics to discuss. But
yeah, I mean, recently one chat this sent something to me over Discord about the furry hackers.
They fell right into our big gay trap.
Like, you will hear a story like that and be like, holy shit, that's fun as hell. Because it's literally something that we encountered last year on stream as well, where they hacked NATO, they even targeted the Pentagon. Like, it's genuinely fun. But then you uncover the thing that they actually uncovered, which is something like Project 2025, which is laid bare for most people to read, and you start reading stuff like that and you go like, holy shit, this can affect people's lives to such a high degree. And you go like, this is not fun anymore. This is actually pretty dark. So like, I understand this. What we used to treat as just straight up goofy stuff is not as goofy anymore, and it's really sad.
It has become draining. As much as I never wanted to admit it, I've started to recognize that my mood is immediately impacted by whatever I read on Twitter in the morning. If that's some horrible stuff about a creator or what have you, it immediately affects my entire day and my whole outlook on the day. Now I know, call the wambulance, get some french fries, just fucking whining about having to talk about drama. What a stupid problem to be upset about. But I'm just trying to explain that it hasn't been as fun recently. It hasn't. And the main thing, if you've been around the channel for a while, is I've always wanted this to be fun and never feel like a job. And as hard as it is for me to admit this, a lot of this kind of stuff, it has just started to feel like less fun and more of, well, gotta do this because I'm expected to. Like, anytime I go live, most of chat is just telling me about the latest in whatever's happening in the creator space or some other like extremely negative thing going on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all about that once I turn stream off. So then I spend a few hours learning about these things, and it's all just really upsetting stuff. Like, it's not happy. It's all very sad, bad stuff. And it's been making me not happy. So I definitely think I'll be slowing down on covering internet-related drama or like drama in general. I'll still talk about like really wacky stories and shit like that, but I definitely think I'm gonna be pumping the brakes on like the kind of drama I have been covering recently. And instead, I'm going to go back to focusing on the content that I'm most happy with. Like, if you ask me what content I'm most proud of throughout my entire time on this platform for the last, like, 17, 18 years...
Gaming?
None of it would be drama coverage. It'd be things like Skynut. It'd be things like shooting a potato at a tennis racket to see if you can make french fries in midair by frying them in hot oil. It's shit like that. And I think I'm going to go back to that kind of stuff as opposed to the direction that I have been going recently. So, yeah, this was a lot to go over here, but I hope this has cleared everything up. And, yeah, that's really about it.
Yeah, it really shouldn't be too much to ask to just allow people to share their opinion without always inflaming things. Especially when it's something that should be rather clear-cut, like discussing the age of consent, like, why are we still doing that? But guys, I actually do think that I should be following the same example as Charlie. Perhaps once or twice a month, cover what is like internet-related stuff and actually focus on something that might be informative. I still do that, okay? I still do that regularly, talk about things that are genuinely fun and intellectual, I guess you could say. But yeah, the drama, while it feels sometimes as being fun to cover, because it can be, because of just how ridiculous it is, I guess that I don't know how it affects you guys' life when you're hearing about these things, but I do relate with how it can be toxic to me as well. But yeah, that being said, this was my thought on the whole Charlie thing, and it was interesting to hear what he actually had to say about a debate that I didn't watch, but I quickly heard about. It was interesting. That being said, guys, wish you all to have a wonderful day. If you like the video, like it and or don't. And yeah, see you guys in the next one for something a bit more fun.